Okay, let's learn how to solve what's going on right here. Now, this is a type of equation, but there's actually two equations, and then we have this little bracket or these brackets around this. And in this particular equation or this thing that we're dealing with, it has two variables, x and y, x and y. So in algebra, in order to know how to solve something, you need to identify what you're dealing with. So what are we dealing with? Do you understand the name or the bigger picture topic? Well, if you don't, I'm going to explain this to you. But if you do, go ahead and put that into the comment section and be like, yes, we're dealing with a what? Okay. So first question is, what are we talking about? What are we dealing with? Okay. The second question is, how can we solve this? What type of options do we have to solve this? And then the third thing, if you can do this, is to actually go ahead and solve that. Put your answers into the comment section. That would be very impressive if you can answer these three questions. But if you're not sure, stick around for a couple minutes. I'm going to explain exactly what to do here. And any of you taking any sort of algebra course are going to absolutely have to know how to solve problems like this. So I'm going to get into this in just 1 second, but first let me quickly introduce myself. My name is John. I'm the founder of TC Math Academy. I'm also a middle and high school math teacher. I've been teaching math for decades, and I'm telling you right now, there's no such thing as a bad math student. So if you're struggling in math, failing in math, that doesn't mean that you're just bad at math and you can't do math. Okay, everyone can be successful in mathematics, but it requires two things. One, you got to be willing to do the work. So if you're not taking notes, doing the practice problems, doing the homework, well, then obviously you're going to have challenges. But if you're willing to do the work, the second thing you need is great math instruction, super clear and understandable, and that's where it can help you out. So if you're at the middle school, high school, or even college level, and you need assistance in mathematics, check out my Math Help program. I'm going to leave a link to it in the description of this video. Also, if you're preparing for any sort of test with the math section, and a lot of you are going to have to take a test in the future, things like the GED, SAT, ACT, GRE, GMAT, ASVAB, maybe a teacher certification exam. I have a large library of test prep courses that can help you out. If you homeschool, I have excellent middle and high school homeschool math courses. And if this video helps you out, consider helping me out by liking it and subscribing to my channel. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into my little quiz for you here. And the first thing is, what are we dealing with? Okay, what is this? What's going on here? Well, if you answer, isn't this a system? Well, I must go ahead and give you a nice little happy face for being such a great math student. Yes, we're talking about a system of linear equations. There's all sorts of technical descriptions we can give this. This is a two variable linear system. This is very much the typical kind of system you're going to deal with like in an Algebra 1 class. You're probably not going to see this in pre-algebra, definitely like in algebra 2, but there's other types of systems. But what we're dealing with here is a two variable linear system. So what does that mean? Okay, what is a system? Well, effectively, you can kind of think of what's going on here as two lines. Okay, so we're talking about this is one line, one linear equation, and another linear equation. This is a big topic in algebra, so I'm kind of oversimplifying it. But a system is like, okay, we got one line here and another line here. So let's just kind of draw it out real quick on a little XY plane. So this right here, hopefully you know how to graph this, okay? So both of these lines are written in what we call standard form, but you can write them into slope-intercept form. But hopefully you know how to graph this line. So if I said graph 2x minus y is equal to 6 and graph 3x plus y is equal to 1, that you would know how to actually plot a line or a linear equation on this xy Cartesian plane. Okay, but let's just suppose, I'm just going to make up some lines. Let's say one of these lines looks like this, and another line looks like this. Okay, all right, so here I have my two lines. Let's suppose these were the lines for these were the graphs for these particular equations. So a system is basically looking at something that involves two lines, okay, two linear equations. And what we're trying to find is the point of intersection, okay? So where these lines cross, that's a particular XY point, okay? So this XY point, the line of intersection, is the solution to this system, okay, or any system. Now, Can a system not have a solution? Absolutely. Okay, let's take a look at a situation that we could very well encounter. What if we had this scenario going on? What if I had this line? Let's say I had another line like this. Okay, I have one line here and another line like here. What's going on here? Well, it looks like these lines are parallel to one another. Will they ever cross? The answer is no. Okay, so sometimes two lines will not cross because they're parallel, i.e. there is no solution to the system. And then we have another situation where we have infinitely many solutions. So systems is a big topic. I'm not going to try to cover it all in this video because we're just going to concentrate on how to solve this particular problem. But now let's get to my second question. So my first question to you was, hey, what is this? If you said system, excellent. My second question is, what are our options to solve this system? Okay. Well, it all depends on what level of math you are, but if you're at the Algebra 1 level, okay, or like let's say college algebra level, uh, the first option you have, or what you first learn, is something called the graphing method, okay? We could go get some graphing paper, actually graph these two lines, and then look and see where these two lines cross. We're like, oh, the lines cross right there because we graphed the lines, and then we could just determine that XY point of intersection, and that would be the solution. But this method, although you need to know it, is really not a practical method. We want an algebraic method to solve this system. So there's two primary methods that you need to be super good at. Okay, the first is called the substitution method. All right. And the second method is called the linear combination or elimination method. All depends on how it's being described to you in your particular textbook. But linear combination and or elimination method. Okay, so these two methods are the primary algebraic techniques that you need to know super good to be able to solve a system. Now, you can use the substitution method or this method. It doesn't make a difference on this particular problem, but you always want to be, by the way, too, you need to know both methods as well. Okay, and you want to choose with time and experience. You'll be able to look at a problem and be like, this method here, for example, would be the better method to solve this particular problem. Okay, but if you're like, no, I only do my problems using a substitution method, that is not good because you're going to be tested on both of these methods. So don't, just be like, oh no, I'm only good at this method. This method I'm terrible with. You need to know both, and with experience, you'll see that both come in very, very handy. Now, with that being said, can you identify, or do you, if you know these two techniques, which technique do you think is better for this particular problem? Okay, now if you don't know this, that's okay, but I'm just asking you this by looking at this system. What do you think? Would you do the substitution method or the linear combination method? Well, I would go ahead and use the linear combination elimination method. So we're going to go ahead and use that method to solve this. So I'm not going to be going over the substitution method. Now, if you need more help with systems, I have a ton of videos on systems on my YouTube channel. Plus, I teach this thoroughly in all my algebra courses. You can find, again, that in my math help program. By the way, I'm going to leave links to my math notes in the description of this video, so you can check out my algebra notes, which I kind of list out these steps to solve systems as well. But let's go ahead and use the linear combination elimination method to solve this. Now, what does this mean, linear combination and or elimination? Well, which is pretty, the one thing that's pretty cool about systems is that we can manipulate and do all sorts of things to these systems. They're hard to break, okay? In other words, I want to eliminate one of the variables, okay? Here I have x and y. So my goal is to get this down to one equation with one variable, okay? That's always the first goal. We want to solve for one variable at a time. So that means I'm going to have to get one equation with just one variable, okay? And I'm going to show you how we're going to do that in a second. But remember, the big picture here is that we're trying to solve for this xy point. So here's x and here's y. When I solve for x, I'm getting that x coordinate of this point of intersection where these two lines cross, and then maybe I can solve for y. So this is what we're going to be trying to do. So and when we're talking about the linear combination elimination method, one of the things that you can do is simply combine, kind of sandwich these equations together to form a new equation, which you can use to solve this system. So I'm kind of going uh, somewhat quickly over the linear combination elimination method. You really want to check out some of my more formal instruction on this, like in either one of my algebra courses and some of the more of the videos I've done on YouTube. But let's go ahead and see how this works. So I'm thinking to myself, well, if I could sandwich these two equations here together, okay, and I can, in other words, just add these down to form a new equation. I have an opportunity to eliminate one of the variables, and that's what you want to do. So I'm going to be like, I'm going to eliminate the y's, and the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to add down. Okay, so I'm going to do this, what we call a linear combination. So I'm going to take 2x plus 3x. I'm going to form a new equation. You're totally allowed to do this when it comes to systems. So 2x plus 3x is 5x. Negative y plus y is 0. That goes away, and that's what I want. I want to eliminate one of the variables so I can just have one variable in one equation. Now I have 6 plus 1 is 7. So I was able to use the linear combination between these two equations to make a new equation. Now sometimes you'll have to multiply one or both of these equations by numbers such that you end up where there's two exact opposites. You're going to want to look at more practice problems beyond this. But you don't want to be afraid of this method and be like, oh, forget this, I'm just going to do the substitution method. You need to know how to work with elimination, the elimination linear combination method, because there's even more advanced techniques to solve systems as you progress in mathematics, things that have to deal with matrices and all this other kind of good stuff. So it's a big topic, and it's not going to go away in terms of your math adventures. Okay, so here we're left with the equation 5x is equal to 7. So that's super easy to solve for. So 5x is equal to 7. Divide both sides of the equation by 5. I get x is equal to 7 over 5. Yay, I am good to go. Now, what does that mean? Well, let's go down here and take a look at this equation. So here's my system. Okay, we just solved for x. Okay, x is equal to 7 over 5. So we are halfway there. Okay, remember I'm looking for an xy point, an ordered pair where these two lines cross. Okay, so right here, this point right there is some xy point. We just got the x part of it right now. That is 7/5. So now we need to get that y part of that point. So now I'm going to go ahead and solve for y. So how can I solve for y? Well, very easy. Once I have x, I can plug in that value in this equation or this equation, and I'm going to solve for y. Okay, either one would work. Always pick the simpler one of these particular equations, but I'll use this one here. 3x plus y is equal to 1. Again, I could use this equation or this equation. You'll get the same answer. But here, I see this 1 kind of looking at me here. I'm like, okay, I love numbers like 1 and 0 because they are so easy to work with. So we'll go ahead and use this. And right here, we have 3x plus y is equal to 1. If I replace this x, okay, with 7/5, because now I know what x is equal to, then I can solve for y. Okay, so let's go ahead and replace that x with 7/5. You can see I already did that. So we got 3 times 7/5 plus y is equal to 1. Now, don't be afraid of fractions. If you're like, oh no, fractions, I don't want to deal with fractions. I get that, but you're going to have to really be comfortable working with fractions. If you need any help with fractions, I have a ton of fraction videos on my YouTube channel. Matter of fact, some of my most popular videos with over 1 million views, are videos on fractions because a lot of people struggle with fractions, but you don't want to be one of those people. But let's continue on. So I have 3 times 7/5 plus y is equal to 1. Let's go ahead and solve for y. So 3 times 7/5 will give me 21/5 plus y is equal to 1. So I need to solve for y, but I'm like, you know what? I don't want to deal with fractions. Let me go ahead and just fix this up, and I can get rid of the fractions in this equation by multiplying by 5, okay, by the LCD here, because the LCD is 5. So anytime you multiply an entire equation by the LCD, you can kind of eliminate the fractions, all right? So 5 times 21 over 5 is simply going to be 21. Okay, the 5's go away. So I have to multiply the 5 by this, the 5 by y, and 5 by 1. So 5 times y is 5y, 5 times 1 is 5. Just makes our life a little bit easier. But you can go ahead and directly work with the fractions right here at this point, right? So you could be like 21 fifths plus y is equal to 1. You can go ahead and subtract 21 fifths from both sides of the equation. And that's not a bad way to go either, because 1 is the same thing as 5 over 5. But I wanted to go ahead and show you, for those of you who have fraction phobia, that you can do this as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and solve for y. So I'll subtract 21 from both sides of the equation. I'm going to get negative 16 over here. So 5y is equal to negative 16. Y is equal to negative 16 over 5. If you're having any issues with this basic equation solving stuff, go back and review what you need to review. Okay, so here is y. Y is equal to negative 16 over 5. What does that mean? Well, that is the y part of our point. Okay, so remember, we already solved for x. That's 7 fifths. Now we know what y is. That's negative 16 fifths. So that is the point of intersection. Okay, x is negative, or excuse me, x is 7 fifths, and y is negative 16 fifths. If I was to graph this line and this line, this is the point where those two lines would cross. Okay, so now one thing that you can do, and you should be comfortable doing, is checking your solution into the original equation. Okay, this xy point. So if you plug in these values into our system, everything should balance out. So we're going to I'm going to show you by doing checking one of these lines here. Okay, one of these linear equations. This would work for both, but we'll go ahead and keep it simple. So let's check this first one here. We're going to replace x with 7 fifths and y with negative 16 fifths. And we'll go ahead and simplify this side of the equation. When I do all that math, it should turn out to be equal to 6. Let's go ahead and see if that works. All right, so 2x, okay, x is 7 fifths, so I'm going to plug in 7 fifths for x, minus y. Y, again, is negative 16 fifths. I'm going to plug that in for y. And now let's go ahead and do all that lovely arithmetic. So 2 times 7 fifths is going to be 14 fifths, subtracted from, or minus, negative 16 fifths. So this is going to be minus and minus. That's positive 16 fifths. Well, you can see that we have the same denominator here. That's 5, so that's going to be 30 fifths. You can see this is looking pretty good for us. So 30 over 5, so 30 divided by 5 is 6, and that's what it's supposed to be equal to the right-hand side. So 6 is equal to 6, meaning that is a good solution, okay? And of course, you could check these into this, and it would work as well. Okay, so how many of you could do this, or how many of you were able to do this all on your own and got this right, and you're like, yeah, Mr. YouTube Math Man, this is easy. Well, if that was the case, I must go ahead and give you a lovely happy face, an A plus 100%. Matter of fact, I might be inclined, if I was your teacher, just to say, you know what, I'm going to send you your report card and just have a good, take the rest of the year off. I don't know what you're doing. Maybe you're watching that guy on YouTube, but whatever you're doing, keep it up. But here's the deal, okay? When it comes to systems of equations, there's a lot of things you need to know, okay? This right here, this particular problem, I would classify is pretty easy. There's definitely much more challenging problems. And along with that, you're going to have to be super good at the substitution method and the linear combination elimination method. And as you progress in mathematics to more advanced math like Algebra 2, calculus, even like in college algebra, you're going to learn how to solve systems using matrices, and there's even other methods as well. So it's a huge topic. And eventually, when you get to things like pre-calculus, you're going to study things called nonlinear systems, which are super fun. So just remember, this stuff is interesting, okay? Just kind of brainwash yourself. If you don't like math, just tell yourself 10 times in a row, I love math, I love math, I love math. Eventually that will click because, attitude is everything when you're learning something, right? If you're like hate math, I get it. Maybe it may not be your favorite subject, But if you have to learn it, try to approach it with a good attitude, and hopefully my videos help you out. That's why I make them. And if this video did help you out, again, don't forget to help me out by liking and subscribing to my channel. I've been on YouTube for a long time, over 10 years. I have over 1,000 plus videos on all different levels of math, from basic math to calculus and everything in between. And same thing with my math help program. Okay, so there's plenty of help out there for you. So whether it's me or someone else that teaches out there, get the help you need to be successful in mathematics. All right, so with that being said, I definitely wish you all the best in your mathematics adventures. Thank you for your time and have a great day.